Okay, so let's get right into it. We're all surrounded by brands, right? But every now and then, a few of them just break through. They become these legends. More than just a logo, more than a product, they actually become part of our culture. So today we're going to figure out what actually makes a brand an icon.
I mean, really think about it. You see a Harley-Davidson, you're not just seeing a motorcycle, are you? You're seeing this whole story about freedom, about rebellion, the open road. Or when someone's wearing Nike, it's not just about, good running shoes. It's about an entire mindset of pushing your limits. So what is the secret sauce? What's really going on here?
Well, it turns out the secret isn't just about clever advertising or having the best new features. According to Harvard marketing expert Douglas Holt, it all comes down to becoming a modern myth maker. The brands that become truly iconic, they tap into these deep, powerful currents in our culture and tell us a story that we are all, deep down, desperate to hear.
To really get how this works, we have to look for the cracks in society's foundation. Because it's in these cracks, these tensions, that iconic brands find their fuel. So what is a cultural tension? It's that disconnect you feel, It's the gap between the story a society tells about itself, what we should be, our big ideals, and the way people are actually living day to day. And that gap, well, it creates a kind of anxiety, a need for something to make sense of it all. That's where the myths come in.
Let's make this real. Let's wind the clock back to the 1950s. The ideal American man at the time was this so-called organization man. He was rational, he was corporate, his whole identity was wrapped up in his job at some huge company. But for a lot of guys, this just felt suffocating. It was a total betrayal of that classic, rugged, individualist American spirit. And right there, boom, you've got a massive cultural tension, just waiting for a brand to come along and tell a different story.
And you know what? There is no brand that shows this better than, of all things, a fizzy green soda. We're going to trace the absolutely incredible journey of Mountain Dew, which somehow managed to reinvent its own myth, not just once, but 3 times to stay iconic across decades. Okay, Act 1. We're back in the 1950s and 60s. Remember that tension, that super buttoned-up organization man on one side and this deep-seated desire for something a little more raw, a little more authentic on the other? This is where Mountain Dew makes its grand entrance.
So Mountain Dew dives right into that cultural anxiety. They weren't selling a refreshing drink, they were selling rebellion. And their mascot, this guy Willie the Hillbilly, was the polar opposite of the organization man. He was untamed, he was uncivilized, and he was proudly, gleefully anti-corporate. He was a symbol of this wild, almost primal idea of manhood. And this slogan, it's perfect. This wasn't just a tagline, it was a promise. The drink itself was literally designed to give you a bang, that jolt of sugar and caffeine. It was a physical way to consume the myth, to feel that wild hillbilly spirit, and to push back, even for just a second, against that gray flannel suit.
All right, now let's jump forward to the 1980s. The culture completely shifts. The new corporate hero isn't the guy who fits in anymore. It's the slick, ambitious yuppie, the cowboy of Wall Street. And all of a sudden, that old hillbilly myth just felt old. It didn't hit the same.
So what did Mountain Dew do? They gave their rebel an update. The hillbilly evolved into the redneck, and this was a direct answer to that Wall Street ideal. This new character was all about physical, real-world toughness, dirt under your fingernails, not hostile takeovers. He was still the wild man, just wearing a different costume for a totally new era.
And then, bam, the 1990s arrive, and with them, another massive cultural earthquake. The economy is now this hyper-competitive, winner-take-all game. The new ideal is that everyone should be a high-achieving, free agent, the CEO of their own life.
But here's the new tension, right? While the culture was celebrating these heroic entrepreneurs and extreme athletes, the reality for a ton of young people, for Generation X, was insecure jobs and a feeling of being stuck. And the rebel that came out of this gap? The slacker. Someone who looked at all that pressure to succeed and just opted out, but in a really creative and ironic way. And once again, Mountain Dew just nails the pivot. The legendary Do the Do campaign totally reinvents the wild man. Now he's a whole crew of slackers. They aren't climbing any corporate ladders. They're doing these completely absurd, over-the-top stunts. Their rebellion wasn't angry, it was detached, it was creative, and it was soaked in this ironic humor that just perfectly captured the whole Gen X vibe. And this catchphrase, oh man, it's pure genius.
In just 4 little phrases, it sums up the entire slacker attitude. It's this total dismissal of the mainstream obsession with winning and achieving. It was a whole new kind of cool, a cool based not on what you did, but on what you were too bored to even try.
So, the Mountain Dew saga. It isn't just a cool story, it's a masterclass. And based on this and other iconic brands, Holt actually boiled the whole strategy down into a clear playbook.
So here it is, Holt's playbook. First, target the big national contradictions. Find where society is at war with itself. Second, create myths that actually lead the culture. Don't just follow trends. Third, speak with a real rebel's voice. Find people who are actually living that counterculture. Fourth, draw on your brand's own history as a kind of political authority, proof that you're legit. And finally, number 5, and this is the big one, it's all built on deep cultural knowledge. You have to understand the history and the anxieties that actually make people tick.
And this right here, this is the whole secret. This is what it's all about. It isn't about focus groups or big data telling you what customers say they want. It's about having this deep, almost academic understanding of culture, of history, of the deep-seated anxieties that shape our lives.
Okay, so this framework is an amazing lens for looking at the past. But what does it tell us about right now? What's next?
When you boil it all down, this is the big takeaway. Iconic brands aren't really selling us things. They're selling us stories. They're giving us these simple, powerful myths that help us make sense of the world and navigate the anxieties of our time.
Which brings us to the big question for all of us living right now. What are the major cultural tensions of today? Where's the gap between our ideals and our reality? You know, maybe it's that tension between being globally connected online but feeling totally isolated in real life. Or maybe it's the promise of technology versus the fear of what it's doing to us.
And that's the final thought I want to leave you with. When you look around at the brands, the movements, the personalities that are gaining real traction today, ask yourself, who is tapping into those tensions? Who is crafting the new myths that are helping us figure it all out? Because whoever is doing that, they're going to be the icons of tomorrow.